I pulled into my parents' driveway that sunny Saturday morning, thinking this would be just another family gathering. My 7-year-old daughter Emma bounced excitedly in her car seat, asking if we could play with her cousins today. I had no idea I was about to witness something so cruel it would shatter my faith in my own family forever. My parents announced they had a special surprise for all the grandchildren and began handing out season passes to Adventureland, the biggest theme park in our state. Emma's eyes lit up as she watched her cousins receive their golden tickets to summer fun. Then came her turn. "Sorry, sweetie, none left for you," my mother said with a dismissive smile, looking down at Emma's hopeful face. Before I could process what had happened, she turned and handed 2 additional passes to the neighbor's kids who had wandered over from next door. Emma stood frozen, her small hand still outstretched confusion, replacing the joy that had been dancing in her brown eyes just moments before. My father chuckled and ruffled the neighbor boy's hair. "There you go, Tommy. You and your sister will love this place." He completely ignored Emma, who had taken a step backward, her shoulders slumping as she tried to understand why she was the only grandchild left empty-handed. The rage building in my chest felt like molten lava, but I forced myself to stay calm. Emma was watching my reaction, and I refused to make this moment worse for her by losing control. Instead, I knelt down beside her and whispered that we would talk about this later, that everything would be okay. But as I stood there watching my parents lavish attention on the neighbor's children, while my own daughter stood excluded, something clicked into place. This was not an isolated incident. This was a pattern I had been blind to for far too long. My mind raced backward through recent family gatherings. Last Christmas, Emma had received a small toy, while her cousins unwrapped expensive electronic devices. During Easter, she was given a basic chocolate bunny, while the others received elaborate gift baskets filled with toys and games. At my nephew's birthday party 3 months ago, Emma was the only child not invited to the sleepover afterward. Each time my parents had explanations: budget constraints, limited space, simple oversight. I had accepted these excuses because I wanted to believe my family loved Emma the same way they loved the other grandchildren. Now, watching them beam with pride as they handed premium amusement park passes to children who were not even related to us, I realized how naive I had been. "Mom," I said, quietly pulling her aside while Emma sat on the porch steps with her cousin Jake's twins. "Can we talk for a minute?" She followed me into the kitchen, her expression already defensive. "Before you say anything gray, we simply miscounted the passes. These things happen." "Miscounted." I kept my voice low but firm. "You had extras for the neighbors, but somehow forgot your own granddaughter." "Don't be so dramatic," she snapped, arranging flowers that did not need arranging. "Emma will be fine. She needs to learn that life is not always fair. You coddle her too much as it is." The casual cruelty in her voice stunned me. "She's 7 years old, Mom. She just wants to be treated the same as her cousins." "Well, maybe if you had made better life choices, she would be," my father said, appearing in the doorway. "We cannot afford to buy extras for everyone who comes around here expecting handouts." I stared at him in disbelief. "Handouts? She's your granddaughter." "She's the product of a failed marriage," he replied coldly. "And frankly, we are not comfortable rewarding that kind of instability." My hands clenched into fists at my sides. They were talking about Emma as if she was somehow defective because her mother and I had divorced 2 years earlier. As if a 7-year-old child was responsible for adult decisions she had no part in making. "You bought new living room furniture last month," I said, gesturing toward the expensive leather sofa set visible through the doorway. "You took a cruise to Alaska in the spring. Do not tell me this is about money." "Our money is our business," my mother said sharply. "We have worked hard for what we have, and we will spend it as we see fit." I was about to respond when Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face streaked with tears. "Daddy, Why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me like they love Connor and Mason and Sophie? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. My parents said nothing, offering no comfort, no explanation, no reassurance. They simply stood there looking uncomfortable, as if Emma's pain was an inconvenience they wished would disappear. "They do love you, sweetheart." I lied, my heart breaking as I knelt to hug her. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but Emma was not fooled. She might have been 7, but she was intuitive enough to understand when she was being excluded. But they gave passes to Tommy and Sarah, and they do not even live here. I had no answer for that logic because there was no logical explanation for what had happened here today. This was pure favoritism, dressed up as unfortunate circumstance. Gray. My brother Jake appeared in the kitchen looking uncomfortable. "Can I talk to you outside?" I told Emma to stay with her cousins and followed Jake out to the backyard. He ran his hands through his hair, clearly struggling with something he needed to say. "Look, I probably should not be telling you this." He began glancing back toward the house to make sure we could not be overheard. "But Mom and Dad have been saying things about you, about the divorce, about how you are raising Emma." My stomach dropped. "What kind of things?" "They think you are a bad influence on the family. They say you are irresponsible, that you cannot provide stability for Emma. They worry that spending time around you will somehow corrupt their other grandchildren." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. "They said that—" Jake nodded miserably. "I tried to defend you, but they have Sarah convinced too. They have been planning things without including you and Emma for months now. The amusement park passes were just the latest example." I felt sick to my stomach. My own parents had been conducting a whisper campaign against me behind my back, poisoning the family against their own granddaughter because they disapproved of my divorce. "How long has this been going on?" "Since right after you and Lisa split up," he admitted. "At first I thought they would come around, but it has only gotten worse. They blame you for breaking up the marriage, and they think Emma is going to grow up damaged because of it." "Emma is fine," I said fiercely. "She's happy, healthy, and well-adjusted. Her mother and I may not have worked out, but we have both made sure she feels loved and secure." "I know that," Jake said quickly. "But they do not see it that way. They see a broken family and they think it reflects poorly on them somehow." I realized then that this was about more than favoritism or money. This was about image. My parents had built their identity around being the perfect family with perfect children who made perfect choices. My divorce had shattered that illusion, and rather than accepting that life sometimes includes difficulties, they had chosen to exile Emma and me, rather than face the reality that their family was not as flawless as they pretended. The worst part was understanding that my innocent daughter had become collateral damage in their quest to maintain appearances. I spent the rest of that afternoon watching my family more carefully than I ever had before. Once Jake had opened my eyes to what was really happening, the signs became impossible to ignore. The way my mother steered conversations away from Emma's accomplishments at school. How my father barely acknowledged her presence during dinner. The subtle ways my siblings had been trained to exclude her from group activities. When Sarah arrived with her daughter Sophie, I decided to test Jake's claims. "Emma learned to ride her bike without training wheels last week," I announced to the room. "That's wonderful," Sarah said automatically, but her attention immediately shifted. "Sophie has been taking advanced swimming lessons. She can already dive off the high board." The message was clear. Emma's achievements did not matter here. Only the other grandchildren's successes were worth celebrating. Later, as the kids played in the backyard, I cornered Sarah in the hallway. "Jake told me about the conversations you have been having with Mom and Dad, about me and Emma." She flushed red, unable to meet my eyes. "I do not know what you mean." "Come on, Sarah, do not lie to me. I know you have been discussing my personal life with them." For a moment, I thought she was going to continue denying it. Then her shoulders sagged in defeat. "They are worried about you, Gray, about the choices you have been making since the divorce. What choice is I work full-time, I pay my bills, I take good care of Emma. What exactly am I doing wrong? You're dating again, she said quietly. They think it is too soon. They worry about the kind of women you are bringing around Emma. I stared at her in amazement. I went on 3 casual dates in the past year. Emma never even met any of them. And what business is it of theirs anyway? They just want what's best for Emma, Sarah insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. No, I said firmly. They want what makes them comfortable. There is a difference. Sarah's facade finally cracked completely. Tears started flowing down her cheeks as the truth poured out. They asked me to keep an eye on you, to report back about your finances, your dating life, whether you seemed stable. They said they were concerned about Emma's welfare. So you have been spying on me. Not spying, she protested weakly. Just observing. And honestly, Gray, some of the things they worried about seemed valid. Your apartment is pretty small. You do work long hours. And after the divorce, you did seem pretty lost for a while. I was going through the biggest life change I had ever experienced. I said, my anger building. Of course I was struggling, but I never let it affect Emma. I have always put her first. I know, Sarah whispered. I know you are a good father, but they convinced me that we needed to watch out for her interests. They said that if something happened to you, we would need to be ready to step in. The implication hit me like a slap. Step in how? She could not answer, which told me everything I needed to know. My family had not just been excluding Emma from activities and gifts. They had been building a case against my fitness as a parent, gathering evidence they could use to justify more drastic action if they chose to take it. Sarah, I said carefully, have you told them anything that could be taken out of context, anything they could use to make me look bad? Her silence stretched long enough to confirm my worst fears. What did you tell them? Little things, she said miserably. Like how you sometimes seem tired when you drop Emma off, or how your apartment does not have much food in the refrigerator, or how you let Emma stay up late on weekends. Each item she mentioned was either completely normal or completely innocent, but I could see how they could be twisted into a narrative of neglect by people determined to find fault. They have been building a file on me, I realized aloud. I think so, Sarah admitted. Dad has been writing things down, taking pictures. Pictures of what? Your apartment when you invited us over for Emma's birthday. Your car when it had that dent in the bumper. Emma wearing the same dress 2 weekends in a row. I felt nauseous. My own family had been documenting my life like I was a criminal under surveillance. Why did you not warn me? I thought they would come around, Sarah said desperately. I thought if I could prove to them that you were doing fine, they would stop worrying and go back to treating Emma normally. But that is not what happened, is it? She shook her head. The more I reported back, the more convinced they became that their concerns were justified. They started saying that Emma would be better off with them, that they could provide the stability she needed. My blood turned to ice water. They want to take Emma away from me. They talk about it sometimes, Sarah whispered, about how they could give her a better life, private schools, a big house, 2 parent figures who are married and stable. I realized then that the amusement park passes had not been thoughtless favoritism. They had been psychological warfare designed to make Emma feel unwanted and unloved, so she might be more receptive to the idea of living with her grandparents full-time. The sound of children's laughter drifted in from the backyard, and I remembered that Emma was out there playing with her cousins, unaware that the adults in her family were plotting against her father's rights to raise her. Does Jake know about this? They have talked to him too, Sarah admitted. They offered to help pay off his student loans if he supported them, and they said if he did not cooperate, they would cut him out of their will entirely. Now I understood why Jake had looked so conflicted when he told me about their campaign against me. He was caught between loyalty to his brother and financial pressure from our parents. What about Emma's mother? Have they contacted Lisa? Sarah's expression answered that question before she could speak. What did they tell her? That you are struggling. That Emma seems unhappy when she comes here. that maybe the custody arrangement should be reconsidered. I closed my eyes, trying to control the fury building inside me. They had not just been undermining me within our family. They had been working to turn Emma's mother against me too. Sarah, do you understand what you have done? You have helped them build a case to take my daughter away from me. I never wanted that, she said, tears streaming down her face. I just wanted Emma to be loved and cared for. When they explained their concerns, it sounded like they were just looking out for her best interests. They manipulated you, I said flatly. They used your love for Emma to turn you into a weapon against me. At that moment, Emma came running inside her face, bright with excitement from playing with her cousins. Daddy, can we come back next week? Connor said they might set up the pool. I looked at her innocent, hopeful expression and felt my heart break all over again. She had no idea that the adults around her had been plotting to remove her from my life. She still believed in the fundamental goodness of her family even after being excluded and humiliated. We will see, sweetheart, I said, pulling her close. But as I held my daughter, I made a silent promise to myself. I was going to find out exactly how far this conspiracy went, and I was going to put a stop to it before it went any further. My family wanted a fight. They were about to get one. That evening, after I had gotten Emma settled at home with a movie and some popcorn, I decided to call Lisa. If my parents had been filling her head with doubts about my parenting, I needed to know exactly what they had been telling her. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear the television in the background of her apartment. Gray, is everything okay? You do not usually call on Saturday nights. We need to talk, I said, about Emma's grandparents. There was a long pause before she responded. What about them? Have they been calling you? Another pause, longer this time. Why would you ask that? Just answer the question, Lisa. Have my parents been contacting you? I heard her sigh deeply. Yes, they have been calling me. Gray, they are worried about you. About Emma. They think maybe we should reconsider our custody arrangement. The words hit me like a physical blow, even though Sarah had prepared me for this possibility. Hearing it directly from Lisa made it real in a way that speculation could not. What exactly have they been telling you? That you seem overwhelmed, that your living situation is not ideal for a child, that Emma appears withdrawn and unhappy when she visits them. I gripped the phone tighter. And you believed them? I did not know what to believe, Lisa said defensively. But Gray, they showed me pictures. Pictures of what? Your apartment. Emma wearing the same clothes multiple times. Your refrigerator looking pretty empty. I felt sick to my stomach. Those pictures were taken out of context, Lisa. You know that, right? Emma changes clothes when she gets to my place because she likes to be comfortable. And I shop for groceries twice a week because I do not have much storage space. I know, she said quietly. When I really thought about it, none of their concerns made much sense. Emma always seems happy when she comes home from your place. She talks about the fun things you do together. Then why are you considering changing our custody arrangement? Lisa was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she spoke. Because your mother called me yesterday and said if I did not cooperate with them voluntarily, they would take both of us to court. My world tilted sideways. They threatened you. Your mother was very polite about it, but yes. She said they had been documenting concerns about Emma's welfare for months. She said they had evidence that you were not providing adequate care, and that they could get a judge to award them custody instead of either of us. Lisa, they cannot do that. Grandparents do not have automatic rights to override fit parents. I know that legally, but Gray, they have money for lawyers. They have time to fight. They have documentation. I work 2 jobs and go to school at night. I cannot afford a custody battle with them, and honestly, neither can you. She was right about that. My parents had retirement savings and investment income that would allow them to pursue expensive legal action for as long as they chose. Lisa and I both lived paycheck to paycheck, doing our best to provide for Emma while building our post-divorce lives. What did you tell them? I told them I needed time to think about it. But Gray, they want an answer by Monday. Monday. I checked the calendar on my phone. That was only 2 days away. Your mother said if I did not agree to support their petition for custody, they would file papers claiming both of us are unfit parents. I slumped against my kitchen counter, overwhelmed by the scope of their betrayal. They had not just been excluding Emma from family activities. They had been building a legal case to take her away from both her parents. Lisa, there is something else you need to know. I found out today that they have been recording conversations, taking pictures, and documenting everything I do with Emma. Sarah has been spying on me and reporting back to them. Recording conversations, is that legal? I do not know, but I doubt it matters to them. They are convinced they know what is best for Emma, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to get their way. Just then I heard a car door slam outside my apartment. Through the window I could see my father walking up the sidewalk toward my building. Lisa, I have to go. My dad just showed up at my apartment. Gray, be careful. Do not give them any more ammunition to use against you. I hung up the phone and went to answer the knock at my door. My father stood there holding a manila folder, his expression grim and determined. We need to talk, he said, pushing past me into my living room. Emma is here, I said quietly. Whatever this is about, keep your voice down. He glanced toward the hallway where Emma's bedroom was located, then looked around my apartment with obvious disapproval. I saw him taking mental notes about the modest furniture, the small space, the stack of bills on my kitchen counter. Your mother and I have been trying to be reasonable about this situation, he began, but it is clear that you are not going to make the right choice on your own. What situation? What choice? He opened the folder and spread several documents across my coffee table. This is a petition for emergency custody of Emma. We have enough documentation here to prove that you are not providing adequate care for her. I looked at the papers in disbelief. They had actually consulted a lawyer and begun formal proceedings to take my daughter away from me. This is insane, Dad. Emma is happy, healthy, and well cared for. Any objective observer would see that. Any objective observer would see a divorced father who works 60 hours a week, lives in a one-bedroom apartment, and can barely afford to keep food in his refrigerator. I work hard to support my daughter, I said through gritted teeth. And this apartment may be small, but it is clean, safe, and filled with love. Emma has her own room, her own toys, and everything she needs. What she needs is stability, my father said coldly. What she needs is 2 parent figures who can provide her with opportunities you will never be able to afford. Private school, dance lessons, college preparation. She's 7 years old, I said incredulously. She needs love and attention, not college preparation. My father pulled out a small recording device and set it on the coffee table. We have been documenting your inappropriate outbursts, your financial struggles, and your inability to provide consistent care. You have been recording me without my knowledge. We have been protecting Emma's interests, he said matter-of-factly. And based on what we have observed, we believe she would be better served living with us full-time. I stared at the recording device, realizing that our entire conversation was probably being captured right now. They had come here not to negotiate or discuss their concerns, but to trap me into saying something they could use against me in court. You want to take Emma away from both her parents? We want to provide her with the stable home environment she deserves. Your mother and I raised 3 successful children. We know how to provide discipline, structure, and opportunities for advancement. And what about love? What about emotional support? What about accepting a child exactly as she is, instead of trying to mold her into some perfect image? My father's expression did not change. Emotional indulgence is not the same thing as love, Gray. Sometimes love means making difficult decisions for someone's long-term benefit. At that moment, Emma appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Daddy, is everything okay? I heard voices. Everything is fine, sweetheart, I said quickly. Grandpa just stopped by to talk. Go back to your room and I will be there in a few minutes to tuck you in. She looked between us uncertainly, picking up on the tension even though she could not understand what was happening. Hi, Grandpa, she said quietly. My father barely acknowledged her greeting. Hello, Emma. You should listen to your father and go back to bed. Emma's face fell at his cold tone, and she retreated to her room without another word. Even in this moment when they were supposedly fighting for her best interests, my father could not bring himself to show her basic warmth and affection. "You have 24 hours to make a decision," he said, gathering up his documents. "Either you and Emma's mother agree to sign custody over to us voluntarily, or we file these papers with the court and let a judge decide what is best for Emma. And if we refuse, then we will expose every detail of your unstable lifestyle to a family court judge, your financial struggles, your inappropriate dating behavior, the inadequate living conditions you are providing for Emma. Do you really want to put her through that kind of public scrutiny?" I realized then that they had backed me into a corner. Even if I ultimately won a custody battle, the process would be expensive, time-consuming, and traumatic for Emma. They were counting on me to give up, rather than put my daughter through that kind of ordeal. "Get out of my apartment," I said quietly. 24 hours, Gray. Make the right choice." After he left, I sat on my couch, staring at the space where his papers had been spread out, trying to process what had just happened. My own parents had just blackmailed me into giving up my daughter. Emma appeared in the hallway again, this time wearing her pajamas and carrying her favorite stuffed animal. "Daddy, why was Grandpa being mean?" I pulled her onto my lap, holding her tight while I tried to figure out how to protect her from the storm that was coming. "Sometimes grown-ups disagree about things, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, you need to know that I love you more than anything in the world." "I love you too, Daddy. Are we in trouble?" I looked down at her trusting face and made a decision that would change everything. "No, Emma, we are not in trouble. But Daddy needs to make some phone calls tonight to make sure we stay together, okay?" She nodded and let me carry her back to her bedroom. As I tucked her in and kissed her goodnight, I was already planning my counterattack. My parents thought they held all the cards, but they had made one critical mistake. They had underestimated how far a father would go to protect his child. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing with a text message from my mother. "Have you made your decision? We need an answer by noon today." They had moved up their deadline, probably trying to increase the pressure and force me into a hasty choice. But instead of panicking, I felt strangely calm. I had spent most of the night researching family law and making phone calls, and I was beginning to understand that my parents' position was not as strong as they wanted me to believe. I was making breakfast for Emma when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I could see both my parents standing outside, along with someone I did not recognize, a middle-aged woman in a business suit carrying a briefcase. "Emma, stay in the kitchen and finish your cereal," I said. "Some people are here to talk to Daddy." I opened the door to find my parents flanked by their supposed legal representation. The woman introduced herself as Patricia Coleman, their family attorney. "We are here to finalize this matter," my mother said briskly. "Patricia has prepared the paperwork for you to sign." "What paperwork?" Ms. Coleman opened her briefcase and pulled out several documents. "These are voluntary custody transfer forms. By signing them, you acknowledge that you are unable to provide adequate care for Emma and agree that her grandparents would better serve her interests." I scanned the papers quickly, noting the legal language that would essentially label me an unfit parent. "And if I refuse to sign these, then we proceed with formal court filings," Ms. Coleman said. "I should warn you that we have substantial documentation supporting our case. Photos of inadequate living conditions, recordings of angry outbursts, testimony from family members about concerning behaviors." Testimony from family members. My mother stepped forward. "Jake and Sarah have agreed to testify about the concerning changes they have observed in your behavior since the divorce. Your inability to maintain stable employment, your inappropriate dating relationships, your apparent resentment toward Emma's needs. Each accusation was a distortion of normal life circumstances twisted to sound sinister. I had changed jobs once in 2 years to get better health insurance for Emma. I had gone on a few casual dates with women I met through friends. And I had never shown resentment toward Emma's needs, only frustration with my parents' unrealistic expectations. You have been recording our conversations illegally, I said to Ms. Coleman. Does not that concern you as their legal representative? She smiled thinly. We prefer to call it documentation of concerning behavior patterns, and actually we have something new to add to our file. My father pulled out his phone and played a brief audio recording. It was my voice from the previous evening saying, "Get out of my apartment," in an angry tone. As you can see, Gray has a history of aggressive behavior even toward his own parents, my mother said smoothly. We are genuinely concerned about Emma's safety and his care. The recording had been edited to remove all context, making my reasonable reaction to their threats sound like an unprovoked outburst. I realized they had probably been recording our family interactions for months, collecting moments they could use against me. "Emma, come here, please," my father called toward the kitchen. "Do not involve her in this," I said sharply. But Emma had already appeared in the living room, drawn by the sound of voices. She looked confused and a little scared to see so many adults gathered in our small apartment. "Hi, sweetheart," my mother said, her tone suddenly warm and grandmotherly. "How would you like to come live with Grandma and Grandpa for a while? We could fix up the guest room just for you, and you could have your own bathroom." Emma looked at me uncertainly. "But I live here with Daddy." "I know, but Daddy has been working very hard lately, and we thought you might enjoy a change of scenery. We could take you shopping for new clothes, and you could have piano lessons." I watched in horror as my mother manipulated my daughter right in front of me, using bribes and false promises to make their custody grab seem appealing. "I like living with Daddy," Emma said quietly, moving closer to me. "Of course you do," my father said. "But sometimes what we like and what is best for us are different things. Grandma and Grandpa just want to make sure you have everything you need to grow up happy and successful." Ms. Coleman checked her watch. "We really do need a decision, Mr. Taylor. The court filings need to be submitted by end of business today if we are going that route." "Actually," I said calmly, "I think there is something you all need to see." I walked to my kitchen counter and picked up a folder I had prepared the night before. Inside were printouts of legal statutes I had researched along with notes from phone calls I had made to family law attorneys. According to state law, grandparents can only petition for custody in very limited circumstances. Death of parents' abandonment or clear evidence of abuse or neglect. Financial struggles and modest living conditions do not constitute grounds for removal of a child from fit parents. Ms. Coleman's expression shifted slightly, the first sign that perhaps their case was not as airtight as they had claimed. "Furthermore," I continued, "recording conversations without consent is illegal in this state. Any evidence gathered through covert surveillance would likely be inadmissible in court." My father scoffed. "You spent one night on the internet and think you understand family law better than our attorney." "Actually, I spent one night talking to 3 different family law firms," I said. "All of them told me the same thing. Your case has no legal merit, and any judge would see it as harassment of fit parents." The room went very quiet. Emma had retreated to the kitchen, sensing the adult tension, even if she could not understand the specifics. Ms. Coleman cleared her throat. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately without the child present." "No," I said firmly. "You brought this into my home on a Sunday morning with my daughter present. You made your threats in front of her. We are finishing this conversation right here." I pulled out my own recording device and set it on the coffee table next to the legal papers. "I have been recording this entire conversation just like you recorded me last night, so we all have documentation now." My mother's face went pale. "Gray, you are making a serious mistake. The mistake would be letting you intimidate me into giving up my daughter based on fabricated concerns and empty legal threats." Ms. Coleman began gathering her papers. "My clients have legitimate concerns about Emma's welfare. Your clients have been systematically excluding Emma from family activities while lavishing attention on other grandchildren. They have been conducting surveillance on me without my knowledge. They have been manipulating family members to spy on me and report back. And now they are trying to use coercion and false legal claims to take my daughter away from me." I turned to face my parents directly. You want Emma. You are going to have to explain to a family court judge why you think a happy, healthy 7-year-old should be removed from her loving father's care, because his apartment is too small and his refrigerator is not full enough for your standards. My father stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. You are going to regret this decision, Gray. We have resources you cannot imagine. We will bury you in legal fees and court costs. Then do it, I said calmly. But understand that every dollar you spend trying to take Emma away from me is a dollar you are stealing from her future. Every hour you spend in court fighting me is an hour you could have spent building a positive relationship with her. And every lie you tell about me is going to come back to haunt you when the truth comes out. Ms. Coleman looked uncomfortable. Perhaps we could explore mediation as an alternative to court proceedings. The time for mediation has passed, I said. You came here today with ultimatums and threats. You tried to manipulate my daughter into choosing between her father and material bribes. You have shown me exactly who you are and what you are willing to do. My mother made one last desperate attempt. Gray, please think about Emma's future. We can give her opportunities you will never be able to afford. Emma's future depends on being loved for who she is, not for who someone else wants her to become. It depends on learning that relationships are based on trust and respect, not manipulation and control. Most importantly, it depends on understanding that family means supporting each other through difficult times, not abandoning each other when life gets complicated. I walked to the door and opened it. I think it is time for you to leave. They filed out without another word, but I could see the calculation in their eyes. This was not over. They were simply regrouping for their next attack. After they left, Emma came out of the kitchen carrying her empty cereal bowl. Daddy or Grandma and Grandpa mad at us? I knelt down to her level, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes when grown-ups disagree about important things, their feelings get hurt. But that is not your fault, and it does not mean anyone is mad at you. Do they want me to live with them instead of with you? There was no point in lying to her. She was smart enough to have understood the basics of what had just happened. They think they could take better care of you than I can. But Emma, I need you to know something very important. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, you are the most precious thing in my world. I will never stop fighting to keep you safe and happy. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I do not want to live anywhere else, Daddy. I want to stay here with you. Then that is what we are going to do, I promised her. But things might get a little complicated for a while. Okay? Some grown-ups might ask you questions about our life together. Just tell them the truth about how you feel and what we do together. She nodded solemnly, and I could see that she understood this was serious even if she could not grasp all the implications. That afternoon, I called Lisa and told her about the morning's confrontation. She was quiet for a long time after I finished the story. Gray, I think we need to talk to the police. The police? What they are doing sounds like harassment, maybe even stalking. Recording you without permission, taking pictures of your home, trying to coerce both of us into giving up custody through threats. I had not thought about involving law enforcement, but she was right. My parents' behavior had crossed the line from family drama into potentially criminal territory. Do you think they would actually take a report? I think we should find out. And Gray, I want you to know that I am not going to let them take Emma away from either of us. Whatever they have threatened, whatever they think they can prove, I will fight them right alongside you. For the first time since this nightmare had begun, I felt like I was not facing it alone. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove Emma to school early so I could meet with the principal before classes started. I needed to make sure my parents had not already contacted the school with their fictional concerns about my parenting. Mrs. Henderson. Emma's principal listened carefully as I explained the situation. Mr. Taylor, I have to tell you your parents did contact us last week. My heart sank. What did they say? They expressed concerns about Emma's emotional state and asked if we had noticed any changes in her behavior or academic performance. And had you? Not at all. Emma is one of our most well-adjusted students. She participates actively in class, gets along well with her peers, and consistently completes her homework. When your parents suggested she might be struggling at home, frankly, we were surprised. What did you tell them? We told them that we could not discuss a student's records with anyone other than her parents without written permission. They asked if they could be added as emergency contacts, but we explained that would require authorization from you or Emma's mother. So my parents had been trying to establish official connections to Emma through her school, probably laying groundwork for their custody claims. Mrs. Henderson, I need you to know that my parents are attempting to take custody of Emma through false allegations. If they contact you again, please do not provide them with any information about Emma or our family. Of course. And Mr. Taylor. For what it is worth, Emma talks about you all the time. She clearly adores you, and she always seems excited about the activities you do together. Whatever your parents have claimed about your relationship with Emma, it does not match what we observe here at school. That small validation meant more to me than she could know. I left the school feeling like I had protected one important front in this battle. Next, I drove to the office of Patricia Mason, the family law attorney I had spoken with by phone the night before. She was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who specialized in custody cases involving grandparents' rights. Let me be clear from the start, she said, after reviewing the documents my parents had presented. Their case has virtually no legal merit. Grandparents cannot simply decide they disapprove of a parent's lifestyle and petition for custody. The bar for removing a child from fit parents is extremely high. But they seem confident they can win. They are either being misled by their attorney, or their attorney is not actually qualified to handle family law cases. The woman you described, Patricia Coleman, is not someone I recognize from the family law community in this area. What does that mean? It means you should ask to see her credentials next time you encounter her. She may be a general practice attorney who does not specialize in family law, or she may not be an attorney at all. That possibility had not occurred to me, but it would explain why their legal threats seemed so disconnected from the reality of family law. Regardless of their attorney's qualifications, Ms. Mason continued, we need to address their harassment and surveillance behavior. Have you documented all their actions? I showed her the timeline I had prepared, detailing every incident I could remember. The exclusion from family events, the surveillance Sarah had admitted to the recorded conversations, the threats against both me and Lisa. This is actually quite helpful, she said. We can file for restraining orders based on this harassment pattern. We can also report the illegal recording to law enforcement. Will that stop them? It will make them think twice about their tactics. And if they do proceed with a custody filing, this documentation will help demonstrate to a judge that their motivations are not about Emma's welfare, but about control and manipulation. I left her office feeling more hopeful than I had in days. My parents might have money and time on their side, but the law was on mine. That afternoon, I picked Emma up from school and took her to her favorite ice cream shop. I wanted to give her a normal, happy experience while I was planning my next moves. Daddy, she said as she worked on a strawberry cone. Why do Grandma and Grandpa not like me? The question broke my heart. Oh, sweetheart, it is not that they do not like you. They just have some grown-up problems they need to work out. But they gave theme park passes to everyone except me. That means they do not think I am as special as the other kids. I struggled to find an age-appropriate way to explain adult dysfunction to a 7-year-old. Sometimes, when grown-ups are unhappy about other things, they make bad choices about how to treat people. That does not mean those people did anything wrong. Are you unhappy, Daddy? I am unhappy about how you were treated yesterday, but I am very happy to be your dad, and I am very proud of who you are. She seemed satisfied with that answer, and we spent the rest of our ice cream time talking about her upcoming school project on butterflies. That evening after Emma was asleep, I called Jake. I needed to know where he stood in all of this, and whether there was any chance of getting him to support me instead of our parents. Gray, he said when he answered. I have been hoping you would call. I need to know something, Jake. Are you really planning to testify against me in court? He was quiet for a long time. They told me if I did not support them, they would cut me off financially. I still owe $60,000 in student loans, and they have been helping me with the payments. So you are willing to lie about me to protect your financial situation. I do not want to lie about you, he said miserably. But Gray, I cannot afford to lose their support. Sarah and I both depend on them for help with our kids' expenses. I realized then that my parents had been systematically creating financial dependencies within our family, making it impossible for my siblings to oppose them without facing serious economic consequences. Jake, what if I told you their legal case has no merit, that they cannot actually take Emma away from me? What do you mean? I explained what the attorney had told me about grandparents' rights and the weakness of their position. They are bluffing, Jake. They are using fear and intimidation to get what they want because they know they cannot get it through legitimate means. Are you sure about that? I am meeting with a detective tomorrow to file harassment charges. I am also filing for restraining orders to prevent them from contacting Emma's school or doctor. Their whole strategy depends on everyone being too scared to fight back. Jake was quiet for several minutes. Gray, there is something else you should know. They have been talking to other family members too. Aunt Carol, Uncle Jim, even Grandma Rose. What have they been telling them? The same things they told us, that you are an unfit parent, that Emma would be better off with them. But some of the family members have been asking questions. What kind of questions? Grandma Rose called me last week and said she was surprised to hear you were having problems because Emma always seemed happy and well cared for when she saw her. Aunt Carol mentioned that she thought it was strange how your parents have been excluding Emma from family events. So my parents' campaign had not been as successful with the extended family as it had been with my immediate siblings. That gave me an idea. Jake, would you be willing to do something for me? Depends what it is. Would you help me organize a family meeting? All the aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents? I want everyone to hear both sides of this story before they make judgments about what is best for Emma. I do not know, Gray. Mom and Dad would be furious if they found out I helped you. They are already furious. And Jake, what happens if they succeed in taking Emma away from me? Do you really think they will stop there? Do you think they will not find fault with your parenting or Sarah's parenting if it serves their purposes? That seemed to get his attention. You think they would come after our kids too? I think they have developed a taste for control, and Emma is just the beginning. Today they are convinced I am an unfit parent. Tomorrow they might decide you work too many hours, or Sarah is too lenient with discipline. Where does it end? I need to think about this. Do not think too long, Jake. They gave me a 24-hour ultimatum. I am not going to wait around while they gather more ammunition against me. After I hung up, I called Lisa and filled her in on my conversations with the attorney and my brother. She had news of her own. I called your parents today and told them I would not support their custody petition, she said. Your mother was not happy. What did she say? She said I was making a mistake and that I would regret not protecting Emma from your instability. Then she said if I did not cooperate voluntarily, they would make sure both of us lost custody. How can they take Emma away from both her parents? They cannot legally, but they can make our lives miserable trying. Gray, I think we should consider going public with this. What do you mean? Social media? Local news? Public pressure? Your parents are trying to destroy us quietly behind closed doors. Maybe it is time to drag their behavior into the light. It was a risky strategy, but she might be right. My parents valued their reputation and social standing above almost everything else. The threat of public embarrassment might be more effective than legal action. Let me think about it, I said. But Lisa, thank you for standing with me on this. Emma is our daughter, Gray. Whatever problems you and I had in our marriage, we both love her completely. I will not let anyone take her away from us based on lies and manipulation. As I got ready for bed that night, I felt cautiously optimistic for the first time since this ordeal had begun. I had legal representation documentation of their harassment and support from Emma's mother. My parents might have started this fight, but I was going to finish it. The next morning I woke up to find 17 missed calls on my phone. The first was from Jake, left at 6:30 in the morning. "Gray, call me back as soon as you get this. Something has happened." The next several calls were from various family members, all asking me to call them urgently. The last call was from my grandmother Rose, and her voicemail made my blood run cold. "Gray, honey, you need to know what your parents tried to do last night. Call me immediately." I called her back before I even got out of bed. "Grandma Rose, what happened?" "Your parents came to see me yesterday evening with some woman they claimed was a lawyer. They wanted me to sign papers saying you were an unfit father and that Emma should live with them." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell them?" "I told them they were out of their minds. I have watched you with Emma Gray. You are a wonderful father and she adores you. I asked them what evidence they had of these terrible claims, and they started showing me pictures of your apartment and playing recordings of you talking." "What did you think of their evidence?" "I thought it was nonsense. Your apartment is small but clean. The recordings sounded like they had been edited to remove context. When I told them I would not sign their papers, your father became very angry." "How angry?" "He started yelling about family loyalty and respect for elders. He said if I did not support them, they would cut me out of Emma's life entirely. That is when I realized this was not about Emma's welfare at all." I felt a surge of love and gratitude for my grandmother, who had seen through their manipulation when my own siblings had not. "Grandma, did they threaten you?" "They said if I did not cooperate, I would never see Emma again. But Gray, what they do not understand is that I already barely see her because they have been excluding her from family gatherings. This threat was meaningless." "What happened after that?" "I asked them to leave my house. But before they went, your mother said something that really disturbed me. She said they had been working on this plan for over a year, and that they would not let one stubborn old woman ruin it." Over a year. They had been planning this systematic destruction of my relationship with Emma since shortly after my divorce. This was not a recent concern about my parenting, but a calculated long-term campaign. "Grandma, would you be willing to testify about what they said to you?" "Absolutely. And Gray, I called your Aunt Carol and Uncle Jim after your parents left. We think you should call a family meeting. There are things the whole family needs to know." After I hung up with my grandmother, I called Aunt Carol. She was my father's sister, and she had always been one of the more sensible voices in our extended family. "Gray, I am so glad you called. Jim and I have been talking, and we think your parents have lost their minds." "What do you mean?" "They called us 3 weeks ago with this story about how you were neglecting Emma and how they needed to step in to protect her. But Gray, we see Emma at family events. She is clearly loved and well cared for. She talks about you constantly, always with such affection and pride. They have been telling the whole family that I am an unfit parent. They have been trying to, but it is not working the way they planned. Most people who actually spend time with you and Emma can see their claims are ridiculous." "Who has believed them?" "Honestly, just Jake and Sarah, and I think they were pressured into it. Everyone else has been asking questions about why Emma has been excluded from so many family activities lately." This was the opening I had been hoping for. "Aunt Carol, would you help me organize a family meeting? I want everyone to hear the truth about what has been happening. We are already planning it. Sunday afternoon at the community center. Jim has called everyone in the family. We want your parents to explain their behavior in front of the whole family." "Will they come?" "They will come because they think they have support. They have no idea how many family members have seen through their campaign." I spent the rest of the morning calling other relatives, and the picture that emerged was encouraging. While my parents had tried to turn the family against me, most people had been skeptical of their claims. The exclusion of Emma from family events had been noticed and questioned by multiple family members. Uncle Jim had been particularly disturbed by my parents' behavior. "Your father called me last month and asked if I would write a letter to a judge explaining why you should not have custody of Emma. When I asked what you had done wrong, he could not give me any specific examples, just vague claims about instability and poor judgment. My cousin Jennifer had been asked to spy on me at Emma's birthday party. Your mother wanted me to take pictures of your apartment and report back about whether Emma seemed happy or neglected. It was the weirdest request I had ever received from a family member. Even the neighbors who had received the amusement park passes were beginning to question what had happened. Tommy's mother called me Tuesday afternoon. "Mr. Taylor, I need to apologize. Your parents told us you could not afford passes for Emma and asked if our kids would accept the extras so they would not go to waste. But my husband and I have been talking, and the whole situation seemed strange." What seemed strange about it? Well, they made such a big production of giving them to our kids in front of Emma. And when Tommy asked if Emma could come to the park with us, your mother said it would not be appropriate because you probably could not afford the gas money to drive her there. The cruelty of their manipulation was breathtaking. They had not just excluded Emma from the amusement park passes, they had used the neighbors to humiliate her further and reinforce their narrative about my financial struggles. Mrs. Patterson, would you be willing to write down what they told you? I am gathering evidence of their behavior. Absolutely. My husband and I feel terrible about being used to hurt Emma. We had no idea we were being manipulated. By Wednesday evening, I had statements from 6 family members, 3 neighbors, Emma's school principal, and my grandmother documenting my parents' campaign against me. I also had recordings of their threats and photographs of their illegal surveillance equipment. Thursday morning, I met with Detective Rodriguez at the police station. She listened carefully as I explained the situation and reviewed all my documentation. "Mr. Taylor, what you are describing sounds like stalking and harassment. The illegal recording definitely violates state privacy laws, and their threats against you and your ex-wife could constitute intimidation. Can you file charges? We can definitely open an investigation. I would like to interview some of these family members you mentioned, particularly your grandmother who witnessed their threats directly. What about their claim that they can take Emma away from me legally? Based on what you have described, they have no legal grounds for a custody petition. But I would recommend filing for restraining orders anyway, just to be safe." I left the police station feeling more confident than I had since this nightmare began. My parents had overplayed their hand, and their web of lies was beginning to unravel. Friday afternoon, I got a call from Jake that changed everything. "Gray, I need to tell you something. Mom and Dad are planning to ambush you at the family meeting on Sunday." "What do you mean?" "They have hired someone to serve you with legal papers during the meeting. They think if they can embarrass you publicly in front of the whole family, people will believe their version of events." "What kind of legal papers?" "I do not know exactly, but I heard them talking about emergency custody orders and allegations of abuse." False allegations of abuse. They were going to accuse me of harming Emma to force an immediate custody change. "Jake, those allegations would be completely fabricated." "I know that. And Gray, I have decided I cannot be part of this anymore. Sarah and I have been talking and we realize they have been manipulating us. We want to support you, not them." "What changed your mind?" "Yesterday, Mom asked me to lie to a social worker about things I had supposedly observed at your apartment. She wanted me to claim I had seen Emma with bruises and that you had explained them away with unconvincing stories. When I told her I had never seen anything like that, she said I needed to understand what was at stake and do my part to protect Emma. She wanted you to make false abuse allegations against me. That is when I realized this was never about protecting Emma. This was about them getting what they wanted no matter who they destroyed in the process." "Jake, would you be willing to testify about what they asked you to do?" "Yes. And Gray, there is something else. I found out Patricia Coleman is not actually a lawyer. She is Mom's friend from their book club. She has been pretending to be their attorney to make their threats seem more legitimate." Everything clicked into place. Their confident legal threats, their knowledge of family law, their official-looking documents. It had all been an elaborate fraud designed to intimidate me into giving up Emma without a fight. "Do you have proof of that?" "I have text messages between Mom and Patricia discussing their strategy. I can forward them to you." "Jake, thank you for doing the right thing. I should have done it weeks ago. Gray, I am sorry for everything. Emma is lucky to have you as her father." Sunday morning, I woke up feeling calm and prepared. I had spent the week gathering allies and evidence, and I was ready to face my parents in front of our entire extended family. But first, I needed to protect Emma from what was about to happen. I dropped Emma off at Lisa's apartment Sunday morning, explaining that there was going to be a big family meeting that might be boring for kids. "Is this about Grandma and Grandpa being mad at us?" she asked, with the intuitive understanding that children often possess. "It is about making sure everyone in our family understands the truth," I said. "And Emma, no matter what happens today, I want you to remember that you are loved, you are valuable, and you deserve to be treated with kindness and respect." She hugged me tightly. "I love you, Daddy. Fix everything okay." "I am going to do my best, sweetheart." The community center was packed when I arrived. It seemed like every relative within a 3-hour drive had shown up for what promised to be either a reconciliation or a reckoning. My parents sat at one end of the room with Patricia Coleman, who was still pretending to be their lawyer. They looked confident and prepared, probably expecting to control the narrative of the meeting. My grandmother Rose sat near the front, flanked by my aunts and uncles. Jake and Sarah had positioned themselves in the middle of the room, clearly torn between family loyalties, but ready to support the truth. Uncle Jim called the meeting to order and explained that we were there to address the serious allegations that had been circulating about Emma's welfare and my fitness as a parent. My father stood up first, launching into a prepared speech about their concerns for Emma's future and their obligation as grandparents to ensure her well-being. He painted a picture of a struggling single father who could not provide adequate care for his child, emphasizing my modest apartment-limited income and the emotional trauma of divorce. As he spoke, I watched the faces of my family members. Some looked concerned, but others appeared skeptical of his dramatic presentation. When he finished, I stood up and addressed the room calmly. "I want to thank everyone for being here today because it is important that you all understand what has really been happening in our family over the past year." I began by describing the pattern of exclusion Emma had experienced. The missed birthday parties, the smaller Christmas gifts, the deliberate omission from family photos and activities. But last Saturday, I continued. Something happened that revealed the true scope of what has been going on. I told them about the amusement park passes, about watching my parents give extras to neighbor children, while my own daughter stood there empty-handed. I described Emma's tears and confusion, and my parents' complete lack of remorse when confronted about their behavior. Several family members looked shocked. They had not witnessed the pass incident directly, but they could imagine how devastating it must have been for a 7-year-old child. Then I revealed what I had learned about their systematic campaign against me. The surveillance, the recordings, the manipulation of my siblings, the false threats of legal action. They have not been gathering evidence because they are concerned about Emma. I explained. They have been building a case to take her away from me because they disapprove of my divorce and want to maintain their image of a perfect family. I played the recording of my father threatening to expose my unstable lifestyle to a family court judge. I read portions of the text messages Jake had forwarded, showing their coordination with Patricia Coleman to create fake legal documentation. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. My Aunt Carol stood up and addressed my parents directly. "Is this true? Have you been secretly recording conversations and taking surveillance photos of your own son?" My mother's composure finally cracked. "We were protecting Emma from a situation she should never have been placed in. Gray's divorce created instability that affects the entire family. Emma's parents are divorced," my grandmother said firmly. "That does not make either of them unfit parents or justify the treatment you have put that child through." My father tried to regain control of the narrative. "We have documentation of concerning behavior patterns. Patricia has advised us that we have grounds for legal action." That was when Jake stood up and delivered the revelation that destroyed their credibility completely. "Patricia Coleman is not a lawyer," he announced to the room. "She is Mom's friend from their book club. Everything she has told you about legal procedures and court filings has been made up." The silence that followed was deafening. My parents looked at each other in panic, realizing their elaborate deception had been exposed. Uncle Jim addressed them with barely controlled anger. "Are you telling us that you have been making legal threats against Gray based on advice from someone who has no legal training whatsoever?" "We consulted with qualified attorneys," my mother said defensively. "Patricia was simply helping us organize our documentation. By pretending to be a lawyer and creating fake legal documents." Sarah stood up holding copies of the papers they had tried to get her to sign. "You asked me to swear to things that never happened. You wanted me to lie under oath to help you take Emma away from Gray." One by one, family members began sharing their own experiences with my parents' manipulation. Aunt Carol described being asked to write false character references. Uncle Jim revealed the pressure to exclude me from family events. My grandmother told everyone about their threats when she refused to support their custody petition. The picture that emerged was one of systematic deception and manipulation, all designed to destroy my relationship with Emma and justify taking her away from me. Patricia Coleman quietly gathered her fake documents and slipped out of the room, clearly unwilling to face questions about her impersonation of an attorney. My parents found themselves increasingly isolated as family members expressed their disgust with their behavior. The confident facade they had maintained for months crumbled completely. "You excluded a 7-year-old child from family activities," my cousin Jennifer said angrily. "You made her feel unloved and unwanted because you disapproved of her father's life choices. How is that protecting her welfare?" "You tried to turn her own parents against each other," Lisa said, having arrived with Emma toward the end of the meeting. "You lied to both of us about what the other was saying and doing." Emma stayed close to her mother, but she looked around the room with wide eyes, finally understanding that the problems she had experienced were not her fault. My father made one last desperate attempt to justify their actions. "Gray's lifestyle choices affect Emma's stability and future opportunities." "What lifestyle choices?" my grandmother demanded. "Working hard to support his daughter. Living modestly while he rebuilds his life after divorce. Dating occasionally like any other single adult. He cannot provide the advantages we could give Emma," my mother said stubbornly. "Emma does not need advantages," I said, finally addressing them directly. "She needs love, acceptance, and the security of knowing her family supports her unconditionally. You have given her the opposite of all those things." Uncle Jim stood up and addressed the room. "I think we need to decide as a family how we are going to move forward from this." The consensus was swift and decisive. The family would not support my parents' custody efforts in any way. They would be asked to apologize to Emma publicly and commit to treating her equally at family events going forward. If they refused, they would find themselves excluded from family gatherings until they changed their behavior. My parents realized they had lost completely. Their campaign to turn the family against me had backfired, leaving them isolated and discredited. "We will not apologize for trying to protect Emma's best interests," my mother said defiantly. "Then you will not be welcome at family events until you do," my grandmother replied firmly. As the meeting broke up, family members approached me to offer support and apologize for not speaking up sooner about Emma's treatment. "We noticed she was being left out," Aunt Carol said, "but we thought it was just oversight. We should have said something." "The important thing is that you are saying something now," I replied. 2 weeks later, I received official notice that my parents had withdrawn their custody petition. Detective Rodriguez informed me that they had also agreed to stop all surveillance and harassment in exchange for avoiding criminal charges related to their illegal recording activities. Emma began attending family events again, this time treated equally with her cousins. The transformation in her confidence and happiness was remarkable. She no longer asked why her grandparents did not love her the same way, because she was finally receiving the same treatment as the other grandchildren. My siblings and I slowly rebuilt our relationships based on honesty and mutual support, rather than manipulation and fear. Jake apologized repeatedly for his role in the surveillance, and Sarah worked hard to regain Emma's trust after her betrayal. Lisa and I established better communication as co-parents, united by our shared experience of defending Emma against my parents' campaign. we both learned valuable lessons about standing up for our daughter, even when it meant confronting family members. Most importantly, Emma learned that she was worthy of love and respect, and that when someone treats her poorly, there are people in her life who will fight to protect her. 6 months later, we were all at Adventureland using passes that my grandmother had bought for the entire family. Emma rode the roller coaster with her cousins, laughing and screaming with pure joy, finally able to participate in the kind of normal childhood experiences she had been denied for so long. As I watched her play, I reflected on the lessons this experience had taught both of us. Standing up to injustice, even when it comes from family, is not just the right thing to do, but a necessary part of protecting the people we love. Children deserve to be valued for who they are, not punished for adult decisions they had no part in making. Emma learned that she has people in her life who will fight for her when she cannot fight for herself. She learned that family means accepting and supporting each other through difficulties, not abandoning each other when life gets complicated. I learned that sometimes the people who claim to love us the most can cause the greatest harm, and that true love means putting someone else's well-being ahead of our own comfort or convenience. Looking back, I am grateful that my parents forced this confrontation, even though it was painful at the time. Their attempt to take Emma away from me ultimately brought our family closer together and taught us all valuable lessons about loyalty, integrity, and the true meaning of unconditional love. Emma is now 8 years old, thriving in school, surrounded by family members who cherish her exactly as she is. She still sees her grandparents occasionally at large family gatherings, but the relationship is polite and distant rather than close and manipulative. She knows her worth now, and she knows she has people in her life who will always stand up for her rights and dignity. That knowledge will serve her well as she grows up and faces whatever challenges life brings her way. As for me, I learned that being a good father sometimes means being willing to fight battles you never wanted to fight against opponents you never imagined you would face. But when you are fighting for your child's happiness and security, no battle is too difficult and no victory too small. The little girl who once stood empty-handed while neighbor children received gifts meant for family is now confident, secure, and surrounded by people who love her unconditionally. That transformation was worth every difficult moment we endured to achieve it. What would you have done if your own family tried to take your child away through lies and manipulation? How important is it to stand up for children who cannot protect themselves from adult dysfunction? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember that every child deserves to feel loved, valued, and protected by the adults in their life. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give them is the willingness to fight for their right to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter who we have to stand up to in order to make that happen.